When I was growing up in school, you had to pick an elective, music or art. It was something we all had to do. And to this day, I think that is what saved my life. Going into junior high and having both, actually, because I was obsessed with the arts. My parents owned a record shop, so my mom would go shopping for records at these distribution places in Los Angeles, and she would always come back. It was like a challenge. What's the weirdest thing she could find for me? And so I had classical music. I had avant-garde pop music, crazy stuff. Singer-songwriter, Tom Waits. That's the first time I ever heard Tom Waits. And I loved it all. And then I would listen to the Bee Gees, obsessed by all their vocals and all that stuff they were doing with their voices, and they were related. So that was really cool. Spanish language music, which our little record shop was all Spanish language. So lots of great singers come from that culture. And a lot of trios do these intricate melodies, harmonies, and that was all really amazing. And then I get to junior high, and I have a teacher who is thrilled about classical music, so thrilled that I became obsessed with it, became a member of the Madrigal Singers, and that, propelled me into this world of harmonies that I had never even dreamt that I could do. And this woman, who is still one of my idols of all time, Linda Anderson, if you're out there anywhere, and many of her students went on to be professional musicians and opera singers and, singers of all kinds of things. And so that's me, high school, still doing it all. And then I had a weird career change. It's a whole other story, but I graduated high school, and because of where I was in Santa Monica, a lot of my friends had famous parents in TV and film, and they all asked me, Perla, what are you going to do after high school? And I said, well, I can't afford to go to college, and so I'm just going to have to get a job. So a friend of mine who is a famous television actor said, I'm going to call Norman. He'll give you a job, Norman Lear. And so I started working for Norman as just running errands, doing whatever I could do, and then I started walking around asking people, do you need any help? Do you need any help? What can I do? The buzz started about me, so departments started fighting over who could hire me permanently. And the publicity department won, and I got hired, and all these shows of Norman's shot to top of the top 10 list in television. And I became a photographer, and I was staff photographer for Norman Lear before reaching 20. It was like how to succeed in business without really trying. I was like, zoop, I'm an executive. I have a department. All the time singing in clubs 3 times a week. So, and at this point, I had completely become obsessed with jazz. And I was singing in these swing groups, and we were doing all these harmony parts and dancing, and was a regular gig for me. It was from working in the morning to working night. I hardly slept at all. So that was sort of my introduction to the art of backing vocals. The art, and that's not even a good word for it. Backing vocals is kind of silly. It's building vocal foundations, like musical foundations. And so that was the start of me going, this is really cool. Because just like there's so much power in the group effort, in everything in life, actually. But musically, when you do that, it's so deeply satisfying. That was basically my start in all of this.
So you were doing that. You were doing it in clubs. You were still moonlighting with Norman.
Oh, no, daylighting with Norman, moonlighting with music. Yes, yeah, totally.
Yes. And where was the shift?
Well, the shift was this. Something happened all of a sudden, we moved from these small studios to everything moves to union studios. I think Norman got in over his head. The company went a little crazy, financially speaking. So next thing we knew, we have all these shows in the top, 20 TV shows, and they're saying we have to cut 50 jobs. And I'm the youngest, so I'm one of the first to go. And then a huge amount of my income is gone, and I'm still singing. And I just thought, oh, oh boy, what's going to happen now? So I just kept working at my gig, at my music gig. And then a friend of mine calls, and it was one of these things that I was ready to quit the music business and maybe try to find a job. Like, I thought, do I want to be a professional photographer? That was sort of just an accident, and it was fun, but super demanding. And did it make me happy? Not like music, not at all. So I got a part-time job just to make some money during the day, and got hired by a famous singer. I can't say who it is, but she fired me immediately because the band was so loud. I mean, I couldn't hear anything. It was just so loud that I was just always kind of complaining about it. And because I couldn't hear anything, I was like, how do we make music when everybody is just so loud?
So it was noise more than music.
Well, I hate to say, well, since I'm not mentioning the name, I can say, yes, it was. I was devastated by this, by being fired. Not by not being in that band anymore, but by being fired. And I remember talking to my dad, who, had been a singer in his youth, and I just was like, Dad, this is horrible. And I never went to my dad for advice. I always went to my mother, but he was the only one at home that day. So I was just crying, and I never cried to my dad. So it was a very strange moment when he very calmly just says, don't worry about it. Something is coming, like really soon. And I just stopped crying, and I just kind of, okay, don't know why, but I just said, okay. And I got off the phone, and the very next day I get a call from someone saying, Leonard Cohen is looking for some backing vocalists. I didn't know who Leonard Cohen was, really, although there had been a buzz earlier. Jennifer Warnes had done a tribute album to him that was all over the press, and I read about it. And so that kind of sparked my memory of a Leonard Cohen, but I wasn't familiar with the work. So I asked, well, what do I need to prepare? And they said, no, you just come, Where else are you going to run some songs? So when you get here, we'll just show you what they are, and if you can do it, great. All night I'm thinking about this, like, how am I going to present myself? Like, what's the most important thing I have to do tomorrow and think about tomorrow? And I said, well, the most important decision I will make is about, like, what am I going to wear? Because, that was kind of first impressions and all that. So I listened. I went to Tower Records. I bought the cassettes, all the cassettes I could find.
No, could you just stop and say that?
Cassettes, yeah.
No,
you remember what those were,
no,
right?
the name of the record store.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Tower Records. Tower, yeah, legendary. And I listened to his music, and I was astounded because, my early education of listening to all these records and listening to truly great songwriters, and also Latino music, Spanish language music, is all about poetry. At least the things I was listening to that my parents listened to. And it was all so beautiful and poetic. So this brought me back there, his lyrics, that they weren't just pop stuff. Like, it was really poetic, and it was art. I considered it art. So the light went off in my head. I knew exactly what to wear, and I felt really good arriving to this audition. It's not always the case. And I walked into the room, and the musical director says, oh, great, glad you're here, Perla. Leonard's coming down the hall. Why don't we just meet first, and then we'll go in and start singing. And I see this figure walking toward me, and he catches my eye, and we both start to giggle, and he takes my hand, and he's dressed, of course, Leonard Cohen, black from head to toe, and I'm dressed in white from head to toe. And he takes my hand, and he says, darling, this is a match made in heaven. And then we get to the music. And it was complicated because it's not just oohs and ahs. His backing vocalists are featured performers, and he really depended on us. And there was a part in this song, I knew the other singer, so we already knew that we could work well together without really speaking about much. We didn't say, oh, you take that part, I'll take this part. It was just like we started here, and then I would go low, and she would go high, and then she would go low, and I would go high. We just knew instinctively what we were going to do. And at one point, in this beautiful moment during Ain't No Cure for Love, there's a part where what are the singers? It's like walking into a church is the lyric, and the singers go into this operatic thing, and it's like close to a high C, and I was like, I can do that. Because of my choral, experience, because of my teacher, because of my operatic training early on, and I did it. I think jaws dropped in the room because nobody else that had auditioned for that had reached that note, and I was so proud. And I left that room saying, if I didn't get this job, it doesn't matter. This was a great day, a great audition. And of course, I got the call that night. Get your bags ready. We're going to Europe. And I didn't even have a passport.
Well, you went to Europe. You went to so many places with Leonard, with his poetry and his prose. It's all part of the same thing. What did you learn in all that time with him about what made the man?
Well, I learned so much during the touring part, especially about performing, because Leonard was an incredible storyteller. The last it was 10 years that he toured, he didn't do any of this. So this was just what back then, what he would do is on the spot, just like show up on stage, be whoever he was that particular day, and have these great stories. And I guess it's also Jewish tradition that when you tell stories in order to pass them on. So you tell a story and then you tell it again and you tell it again. What I loved about Leonard's storytelling is that he cracked himself up. It didn't matter if anybody laughed. He was cracking himself up with his stories, and I just, and I learned because a lot of kids, I remember being around, children, my own nieces, and they would say things like, "Oh, you've told that story before, Dad," and it wasn't till later, like till being around Leonard, when I just thought, you got to keep telling the stories, because it is important to pass them down. And he did that in such a beautiful way. And even now, when I do concerts that are about Leonard, his beautiful body of work, I tell some of the stories that Leonard used to tell, which is like ridiculous that anyone else would tell them. But I feel like, I got to keep passing them on.
I have heard you do that at least once. Yeah, you do it very, very well.
Thank you.
You told me when I called you about this and said, are you interested? Would you be willing to do this? Let's talk about the backup singing part. Yeah. And maybe you don't want to talk about the backup singing part. And you said, oh no, it's what saved me during COVID.
Oh yeah.
Explain what.
Oh my gosh. Well, if I could just, because backup singing, it's kind of been given a bad rap. There was that movie, the 20 Feet from Stardom movie, which I get why people liked it. But I actually was very disappointed because it really didn't get into the art of what it is and how important the backing singer is. And also this idea that people just want to be famous. I'm like, what is that? Like, why would famous be a goal for anybody? I just feel like that the music and being that musical foundation for whoever it is you're supporting is a beautiful thing, and that power that you have from being part of a band. All these musicians get together, and usually anyone that's on the road with someone that's got a name is the best of the best. Like, they're so good at what they do for the most part. And when you get to work with that caliber of people, the art involved in what you're doing, especially with music like there are obviously some rock and roll things that don't require much, but when you're working with real poetry and you're trying to build something, it is incredibly satisfying. So COVID hits, and I'm at the point in my career 2 years ago where really wonderful things are starting to happen. I'm starting to play bigger halls. I'm touring Europe. I'm getting to play town hall in New York, and I was so looking forward to that. And the bottom drops out. Everything is completely shut down, and I feel like the rug is pulled out from under me. All my income is gone. But people pulled together, like so the presenters that had me on the books, they just said, because, they pay deposits and everything and I thought paying back deposits would destroy me. And they said, we're going to work with you. We're going to live stream. We're going to do whatever it is in our power to make it okay. And so that, for the first year, that got me through. And then artists. I have a wonderful producer in the small town that I live in. I don't know how that happened, but this incredible producer, Dave Palmer, who is my dear friend and lives there, and he was scoring these vocals for different artists and film, and he just said, Perla, I can't bring in choirs, I can't bring in backing singers to do these sessions. Are you willing to do all of the vocals? And I was like, heck yeah, I have nothing else going on right now. So it's been like a year of doing these vocals that, extremely satisfying because I'm working with great artists and a great producer, but also, saved me, financially speaking.
You said it is unusual that you would have that kind of facility in Ojai, in a small place, and so you were able to do it there. Back to Leonard. Another story about being on the road with him. Tell us about the caviar.
Oh yeah. In '93, Leonard hated going on publicity tours, promotional tours, because people are asking the same questions. He gets asked a lot of ridiculous questions, and anyway, he said, "Darling, would you please come on this promotional tour with me?" And I'm sorry, it's going to be over the Thanksgiving holiday. I don't want to ruin your Thanksgiving. I know you have plans, and blah, blah, blah. And I just said, I'd love to, getting to go to Paris and Oslo. And yeah, I said, yes, I would love to go. No problem. So we're, I think it was in the Oslo airport, had just landed, and usually we just walk together, get our car, go to the hotel, whatever. And he said, darling, maybe don't come with me right now. And I just thought, okay, wow, okay. Felt a little slighted there, and I just said, okay, I'll see you at the car. Got my bags, was the car. And I get a phone call after we checked into our hotel room saying, Perla, I'm preparing Thanksgiving dinner in my room. Would you come? And I said, sure, why not? So I get to his room, and he has a giant tin of Russian beluga and champagne. And that was our Thanksgiving dinner. Best Thanksgiving dinner I've ever had.
And you were thankful.
Very thankful.
Thankful
My two
and
favorite
grateful.
things, champagne and caviar.